Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... Well, at last it is Christmas weekend, and before I get started on this review, I would just like to say Merry Christmas to everyone. And if you celebrate Hanukkah or Yule, I hope you're having a great celebration for those holidays. Also, I understand that Kwanzaa is right around the corner, so if you celebrate Kwanzaa, I hope you have a happy Kwanzaa. But anywho, with that said, this weekend I'm reviewing The Stupidist Angel by Christopher Moore. And this is a book that I buddy read with my good online friend Hanny about maybe a week ago. And as always, we had a lot of really great discussions about the themes and characters. But this time, we actually had a lot of moments where we laughed our asses
What's your
off.
Christmas wish this year?
Well, world peace, I guess.
Not gonna happen. Bring it in a little.
All right. Well, a cup of eggnog would be nice.
Okay, sure.
Really? Oh. 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 How old is that shit?
I don't know.
Oh.
I found it under the seat in my car. It expired in 2021. You should have been more specific in your wish.
Well, this stocking has gone to hell. You know, I could just sit here and throw myself a pity party on Christmas Eve, but that ain't gonna do nobody any good. So I'm just going to accept that this is going to be another one of those dysfunctional family holidays and just try to make the best of it and power through. So, going forward, I would just like to thank Hanny for buddy reading this with me, and I hope she enjoys this review. Now, without further ado, let's head off to Pine Cove and see what kind of creatures are stirring on this winter's night. The Stupidist Angel by Christopher Moore documents 5 days prior to Christmas where a young boy named Josh witnesses the accidental death of their town Scrooge, who had just happened to have been dressed as Santa. Meanwhile, up in heaven, the angel Raziel had been playing cards with St. Michael, and since Raziel had lost, he had to go to Earth and grant a Christmas wish for a child. Well, as fate would have it, Josh wishes for Santa to come back. And because of Raziel not being the smartest of all angels, he accidentally causes a horde of zombies to uprise on Christmas Eve. Following his little mishap, it's now up to this dysfunctional town of sordid characters to come together so they can survive the night and see Christmas morning. The Stupidist Angel by Christopher Moore was published in 2004 and is the third part to Moore's Pine Cove trilogy. In 2005, The Stupidist Angel won the Quill Award in the category of science fiction, fantasy, horror. And that same year, Moore released another edition of The Stupidist Angel where the texts remain unchanged, but with a short story added at the end, which elaborated on Pine Cove 1 year later. The Stupidist Angel is a twist on the title of the 1946 book The Littlest Angel by Charles Tazewell. Fun facts! Here's a few things you might not know about Christopher Moore. Around age 12, Christopher Moore began writing, and by age 16, he considered he would make a career out of being an author. In the past, Moore has named quite a few authors who influenced him. Some of these include Douglas Adams, John Steinbeck, Robert Bloch, Richard Matheson, Jules Verne, Ray Bradbury, H.P. Lovecraft, and Edgar Allan Poe. On his website, Moore explained, although all of his books have been optioned or bought for film at one time or another, none of them have actually been adapted. Now that we have that covered, it's time to move on to the spoiler segment, which, if you haven't read this book before, I'm about to reveal some things that could ruin the experience for you. So if you would like to click away, just scroll down to the comments, and you'll see at the top that I have a pinned comment with a timestamp in it. Once you click that timestamp, it will direct you away from the spoiler section and bring you to the thoughts section. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this. So, ready, set, go! Since everyone's had the opportunity to click away, I would like to talk about a few of my favorite moments. First off is Dell's death. Now, leading up to this, it had been established that Dell was nothing more than an elitist, stingy asshole. And after we gained this insight into his character, we're taken to one evening prior to Christmas Eve, where he's dressed as a Santa because he normally plays the Santa for their local lodge. However, instead of him doing something wholesome, he's drunk speed racing to some property that he owns because someone's been stealing his saplings. Well, once he arrives on scene, he discovers the thief is actually his ex-wife named Lena, and because of him having a temper, he pulls a gun on her, which this causes her to retaliate with her shovel. And as fate would have it, one wrong move causes her shovel to get lodged in his mug, which of course kills him. Aside from how this scene played out, I really love how the author alluded to this happening as soon as we discovered that Dell was going to be a Scrooge-type character. Which, to give an example of the humor in this book, and this is just me paraphrasing, the author mentions, had this been any other book, Dell would have been visited by 3 ghosts. But, of course, this isn't that type of story, and someone is going to dispatch the miserable old son of a bitch with a shovel to the face. So, we knew this was coming, but we just didn't know how it was going to happen or who was going to be holding the shovel. And I'm really glad that it was Lena, because I know she probably had a lot of pent-up aggression, considering she had been married to this jerk. So, good for her. Next up was the grand finale with the zombies, which, prior to this, Josh had witnessed Dell's accidental death. And since Dell was dressed as Santa, Josh actually thought Dell was Santa. So, because of him not knowing any better, Josh made a Christmas wish for Santa to come back. Yet, his Christmas wish didn't fall on deaf ears, because this is when the angel Raziel granted him that wish by going to the cemetery where Dell had been buried in a shallow grave. Once there, Raziel had said, "Who lies here and is not alive, come forth." Well, after Raziel says his magical words, the dead rise from their graves and they trap all of the townspeople in the church as they're trying to take shelter from the storm. Now, some of my favorite moments throughout this sequence would include Theo thinking this is actually the robot apocalypse because he's high, the zombies wanting to burn down the church because they want to have a literal barbecue, and Molly showing up with her sword to kick ass. Y'all, this entire sequence kicked ass, and because of the personality that the zombies had, it reminded me of Return of the Living Dead, which, by the way, is one of my all-time favorite zombie movies. And going into this book, I didn't think we were going to be met with zombies who were intelligent enough to communicate, much less wanting to set a church on fire so they could have a barbecue. So, that was pretty cool. And I really loved how kick-ass of a character Molly was here, because with only a sword, she killed off a whole cemetery full of ghouls. And this kind of reminded me of what would happen if the bride in Kill Bill was actually in a zombie movie. My final favorite moment was when Raziel realized he had screwed up. Now, earlier in the book, it had mentioned that Raziel was responsible for accidentally destroying two cities in the past because he honestly isn't the brightest angel in the universe. So, after he decides to see how things are going, he walks up to Josh and is like, "Well, this isn't what I would have wished for, but how are you enjoying your Christmas miracle?" And this is when Josh is like, "I didn't ask for this. I simply asked for things to go back the way they were before Santa died." And with this revelation, Raziel is like, "Whoops." I mean, just the nonchalantness behind it and just that speechlessness. But anyway, because of Raziel having the magic that he does, he's able just to snap his fingers and save Christmas. Okay, so I honestly had no idea how Raziel was going to react to this, so when he simply said, "Whoops," I couldn't help but laugh my ass off because I could see myself responding the same way. Also, I was really glad that this book had a happy ending instead of a nihilistic one, because even though I'm fine with a book ending on a nihilistic note, this was something where I really felt like I needed that happiness at the end to uplift me. And I also had read a lot of really depressing books this last year, so I really feel like this is what I needed at this particular time. I would like to take this opportunity to bitch about Dell. If you were to look up the phrase tight-wadded asshole, this stingy son of a bitch would be staring you right in the face. And to back my claim, while he is loaded out the ass with money, he does not donate, nor does he care to brighten the lives of those who are underprivileged by simply providing them with a sapling for Christmas. Which, of course, this doesn't mean he deserves to die, but at the same time, if I saw him take a shovel to the face, it would not interrupt my Christmas cheer. And while I do feel like he got his comeuppance, I was really happy to see that he had changed as a person after Raziel had brought him back the second time, or rather, turned back time so he could be a better person. And granted, he's not Scrooge level better person, but of course, he's not the gutter trash that we originally saw. The Stupidist Angel by Christopher Moore was just as hilarious as it was horrific. And even though this is a part of the Pine Cove trilogy, I don't think you have to read the first two books in order to enjoy this one. But after having read this installment, I probably will go back and read the first two books because I was very captivated by the characters and the town. Aside from that, Hanny and I really felt like this book commented on a lot of different subjects, which primarily it feels like it's a cautionary tale that warns the reader to be careful of what they wish for. Also, it does feel like it touched on subjects like affordable medicine, quitting bad habits, and greed. Character-wise, I really loved Molly because while she had a mental illness, she was able to rise above. Plus, she had a great sense of humor, a heart of gold, and she could kick ass with a sword. Which, in my opinion, this made her a very iconic female protagonist. Also, I really enjoyed Tucker's character because he had this awesome sidekick that was a fruit bat that wore sunglasses, and I thought that was really adorable. But as far as Tucker goes, he seemed like he was really chill, had a good demeanor about him, but at the same time, if shit got real, he could be strong about it. And I'm not gonna lie, I really had a crush on him. Like, he was really hot. And with this crush, it also extends over to the character of Theo, because while he was really laid back, he had these John Krasinski vibes going on, so yeah, there was that. But overall, I really enjoyed the characters of this book. I quickly became invested in their lives. I love how they interacted. And after I finished my read, I discovered that I really wanted to experience more mishaps with them. Theme wise, for the most part, this book is a cautionary tale that warns the reader to be careful of what they wish for. Like, if you're going to throw a wish or prayer into the universe, be sure you have it worded correctly. If not, there's a good chance an astral being like Brazil will come and screw it all up. Next up, I believe this book is commenting on affordable medicines, which this is seen through Molly's character as she went off of her meds because she's waiting on a paycheck to come in so she can get a refill. Also, I think this is commenting on her life as an ex actress as well, because the general public tends to think that just because someone's in the entertainment industry, they're loaded. Which, in reality, unless you're an A-lister, that's not the case. And even though her being off of her meds is what caused her to save the day because she imagined herself as a warrior, I don't believe the author is trying to encourage anyone to go off their meds. I know for a fact I'm not trying to encourage anyone to go off of their meds by speaking of this because I'm medicated. So if you're on your meds, you're on those for a reason, stay on them. But I do think that the book is showing us that not everyone can afford pharmaceuticals because of how outrageous the prices are. Next up, this book comments on how hard it is to kick a bad habit. And this comes about when Theo explained to Molly that he would quit smoking weed if she stayed on her meds. But as the book progressed, we see that he continues to light up here and there. And while I don't have any problem with weed at all, this book was written during a time when weed still had a stigma tied to it, which of course the author uses this as a comedic advantage to the story. But I tend to think the main focus here is how Theo told Molly that he would quit, but he's still doing it behind her back when he wants to indulge, even though he had said that he would cut it out. So, yeah, saying and doing are two completely different things, and sometimes it can be a little bit harder than what you expect. Also, I noticed where this book focused a great deal on greed, which, to be honest, had it not been for Dell's actions, the events of this book never would have taken place. And at the beginning, it shows how greed can start off small and only affect a few people, but as time progresses, it can become a more widespread problem. And it was really interesting to see that the author used zombies in a story of this type because, as we all know, zombies eat humans nonstop and they have a hunger that can never be satisfied. Which, to be honest, this is how rich people and greedy corporations financially do to those who are underprivileged. Overall, The Stupidist Angel didn't scare me, it didn't creep me out, and it didn't gross me out. But it was entertaining, it did give me the escapism I needed, and it was quite humorous. Although The Stupidist Angel by Christopher Moore did put me in the holiday spirit, I was expecting just a little bit more page time with Zombie Santa. Even still, the overall vibe was satisfying. And while this book is comedic, it does a great job of walking the line between humor and horror without choosing either side. So, at the end of the day, if you're looking for a comedic horror Christmas story that doesn't overdo it with gore, then I do highly recommend The Stupidest Angel. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that review, and now it's time to close out this video. But before I do, I would like to thank these amazing people for contributing to my Patreon account. As you can tell, some of the names listed here are creators, so be sure to check out their work. And if you would like to contribute to my Patreon account as well, I have a link available in the description section of this episode, where for $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my videos. And if you have a certain profession you would like for me to tie to your name, just let me know and I'll include that as well. Also, I do have a $10 tier available where for $10 a month you'll still receive the shout out, But I do creepy photography on the side, so at the beginning of every month, I'll send you over one of my creepy photos. From there, you can print it off and do whatever you like. So if you're able to do this, that's awesome. If not, no sweat. I just hope you return to this channel so we can have a good time together. Also, if you would like to hit me up on social media, links to my Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram are all available in the description section of this episode. Also, if you've not subscribed to this channel, be sure to subscribe and click that notifications bell because I have more book reviews coming in the near future. So, until we see each other again, I hope you have a great week and sweet nightmares.